All right, Aaron Schock, thank you so much for being here.
Great to be with you.
You have talked a lot about the importance of these midterms. How do you combat a lot of apathy amongst voters and even amongst political pundits who say, it doesn't really matter, it's all a gridlock, it's all a standstill?
Well, I think you have to make the issues before the election matter. Obviously, whether we're talking about global issues or whether we're talking about very domestic issues, how much the cost of milk, how much the cost of fuel, those are issues that matter to moms, they matter to head of households, fathers that are trying to provide for their families. For young people of our generation, youth unemployment is still at a record high. And so for a lot of them, they're saying, look, I got college debt, lower interest rates are great, but how about a job to pay it off? And so what I try to do when I'm out on the stump and running around my district is talk about my ideas to get the economy going, to create jobs, because that's what's relevant to young people, which we see oftentimes is the downturn in turnout between a presidential cycle and a governor's race. Last presidential race, as you know, record turnout among young people, outperformed every other demographic in the country. So kudos to young people in the president's race, but we got to keep them engaged in gubernatorial campaigns, and congressional campaigns in the midterms are equally as important.
There's a lot of obstacles to that. One of them is people are apathetic because this is the least productive Congress ever that you're a member of. Is that a Republican problem, a Democratic problem, a bipartisan problem?
Well, let's just talk about the facts. The House of Representatives has passed nearly 400 pieces of legislation. 350 of them have been bipartisan votes. So they're not crazy right-wing bills. They're bills that a number of Democrats have said, you know what, this is legislation that I can support. So over 300 of those bills have gone to the Senate, and prior to the August recess, the Senate this year in total has voted 21 times. So I joined the president in his frustration that Congress hasn't done more, but Civics 101 will tell you the bill's got to pass the House and pass the Senate before it go to the president's desk. And certainly here, Reed and I don't agree on everything, but hey man, send us some bills, send us some legislation, and then we can debate it.
But House GOP leadership has also said, we're just going to block any of this president's initiatives, indeed that's the priority. Isn't that part of the problem as well?
Not really. Actually, on the highway bill, we passed an extension. On the farm bill, we passed an extension. On trade bills, the president sent us, we've passed. So there's a lot of things that we can work together. Certainly, the pieces of legislation that I'm speaking of that deal with EPA, that deal with the Department of Labor, that have passed the House overwhelmingly with Democrats and Republicans, they should get a hearing in the Senate. And so, look, both parties have some culpability, but the reality is if you have one chamber passing 300 bills and one chamber passing a dozen bills, I would say that there's a bit of a difference.
I take your point. I take your point. Look, you voted in favor of training and arming Syrian rebels. Should Congress come back from vacation to actually address the broader issue of whether there needs to be a new authorization of the use of military force for these airstrikes?
Well, I think we had that debate among the Congress about whether or not that was necessary. We knew when we were voting for Title X authorization for the training of troops, the Syrian rebels, as well as the money that was in that continuing resolution at the end of September to fund the president's airstrikes, that we were in essence authorizing what he was asking for. I think the broader question is, should Congress and the president begin debating whether or not this use of force is sufficient? And I think that's going to take some time. I'm in the camp of people that believes airstrikes alone will not completely decimate ISIL, and it will require some troops on the ground, whether those are American troops, whether the rebels are going to be enough, or whether it's going to be our Arab allies that do it. That's yet to be seen, but I think that is a debate that will take place, but these airstrikes need to be given some time, and I think the president, who is the commander-in-chief, we've got to get some latitude to.
And you don't think it's inappropriate that Congress isn't coming back?
Well, I don't think there's anything for us to debate right now on use of force. The authorization for money and training has already been voted on by the Congress, and so this notion that somehow we're all on vacation is kind of a misnomer, because we're back in our districts meeting with constituents, doing constituent work, which I argue is almost equally, if not more important than some of the votes we take out in D.C.
Aaron Schock, you do a lot to reach across the aisle. I want to see more young people in both parties do that, so I commend you for that, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
This is good.
It's up to the voters. The voters decide what kind
That
of
is an
person
important
they put in the office, and I tell people, if you want people who aren't crazy on the right or the left, then make sure when you vote for someone that they represent your values and your style of politics.
Apathy is the enemy. Thank you for that message,
Thanks,
sir.
Phil.
That's inspiring. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for being with me.
Yeah.